Everyone to our webinar on how to attract, develop, and retain a winning team. Now, today we're going to be looking at how to understand our behaviors in order to obtain this winning team. And I'm going to take you step by step on how you can obtain a winning team. Before we do that, I'm just going to introduce myself for those of you who may not know me. I'm just going to go ahead. So a little bit about myself. My name is Kimberly Clarke, and I am the Certified DISc Practitioner here, and I'm also the Business Development Officer. I graduated from the University of Western Ontario, which is in Canada, with a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology, and I also received my master's degree from Walden University in industrial and organizational psychology. Now, just a fun fact about myself, I'm actually an identical twin. And my twin studied business in university and I studied psychology. So it's really quite interesting how we're able to bridge those together and how I truly believe that our behaviors in the workplace can be influenced with how we communicate and we collaborate with others. So I know we're very eager to learn more. So I'm just going to share with you what we're going to cover. So today, we're going to be covering 3 aspects of achieving a winning team. So first, we're going to attract the winning team. And to attract a winning team, we need to understand what it is that we're looking for. So for example, if you're looking to bring in a new sales representative, you first need to look at the specific behaviors and characteristics that you're looking for. And you want to do this before you bring them in, right? Secondly, we're going to be looking at developing the team. So you're bringing these people in, but how do we develop them, right? We do this by identifying the specific behavioral styles and using the strength of each style. And lastly, we have the team, it's developing, but how do we keep it? We retain this winning team by adapting to other behavioral styles and allowing others to adapt to us, because that's how we're going to truly have a meaningful relationship. So let's dive right in. So generally speaking, people make the mistake of assuming that others interact and think the same way that we do. So we all know the golden rule, right? Treat others the way we want to be treated. And while that is a great rule to live by, it doesn't always work, especially with communication. So I want you guys to consider Dr. Tony Alessandro's platinum rule, which is to treat others the way they want to be treated, right? So to truly value somebody and to truly understand their behaviors, we need to look at their needs and their wants. And then that is when we start valuing them, right? So in this webinar, I'm going to be talking a lot about DISC, the different behavioral styles. So before we get started, I just want to do a quick check-in with you guys, or a poll, to see who has done a DISC behavioral assessment in the past, if you've done one recently or in a couple of years ago. You guys can just indicate on the poll if you've done a DISC before or not. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have, yes, so we have 83, so I'm going to end it. And as we can see, majority no, but yes, we still have quite a bit of people who have done it before. I'm hoping that maybe these are recent ones, because I'll share kind of within the presentation the importance of doing your DISC assessment more than once in your life. Yes, so I'll just close this. Right, so now that we've established that, I just want to talk a little bit about DISC for those who, are not familiar with it or just want a refresher. So DISC is looking at your observable and external behaviors. And that really gives us a glimpse of what's inside the individual, what makes them tick. So DISC stands for 4 different behavioral styles: dominant, influential, steady, and compliant or conscientious. Now, don't worry, I'm going to show you a video and we're going to dive into each. But DISC is all about your need. It's needs motivated. It's looking at your observable behaviors and your emotions. And it's a combination of nature and nurture. So who you are and the situations that you may be in. DISC is not, on the other hand, a measure of intelligence, skills, education, or experience, and it's not an indicator of value. It is solely about the observable behaviors that we see in ourselves and others. So I'm just going to play this quick video for you guys to show you the different styles before we dive into each.
People are different. People are different, but they are predictably different. Do you believe that people are different? How many of you guys believe that people are different? Yes, of course, people are all different. How many of you believe that we can predict how someone will act or react in a given environment? Let me show you how we do that. In the general population, there are 4 types of people, and we call them dominant, or the D style, influencing, or the I style, stable, or steady, which is the S style, and then the C style is the compliant style. And those are the people that make up our world. And you see those people all the time. You see those people all the time. If you've ever walked up to an elevator and saw the guy that presses the button and then steps back and looks at the button again, and then he presses it, and then he taps it or holds it, because he thinks that as he presses that, the elevator must surely arrive faster, that is the D personality style. Dominant, direct, they're drivers. They want to control their environment. They want to do something to make something happen in their world. And so they will keep their thumb on that button until the elevator comes. Now, once the doors open and everyone walks in and they close, the one guy that turns around and starts talking to people, the guy that's smiling because once the doors close, he knows he has a captive audience, that is the I personality style. They're the influencers. They're the ones when the door opens, he goes, boom, 3rd floor, lingerie, enjoy your day. Those are the I's. Now the S personality style, they're stable, steady. They're very relational. They are people. Now they're the people that if the door's starting to close, but there's somebody that may or may not be wanting to get on the elevator, they'll stick their hand out. There's plenty of room, come on in, come on in. Now the D is back there going, oh, come on, man. I gotta go. Like, why are you waiting? And the S is holding the door open. And if there's too many people, they'll say, you know what, I'll just take the stairs. So they'll get out, let somebody else go. You go on, it's okay. That's that S personality style. Very stable, steady. Now, the C's. The C personality style is the guy that's very quiet, off to the side, and he's standing there looking at the plaque that says maximum weight, 3,700 pounds. And he's calculating body weight. He's going, if one person gets on, I'm off. Like that's the guy. He's the guy that notices when the inspection date is due on the elevator. So those are the 4 personality styles. Now, D's make up about 3% of the population. 3%. Do you know why? Because any more than 3% and we would be at war all the time. So God in his wisdom said, we need those D's, we need those drivers, but let's keep them down to about 3% of the population. I's are about 11% of the population. And I's are fun to have around, but any more than 11% of the population, we would never get anything done. S's make up 69% of the population. They are the majority of people that you're going to be dealing with. Very stable, steady. Another S word for you, status quo. They like things the way things are right now. They make up 69% of the population. C's, what percent of the population would C's be? Okay, the person that said 17%, that person's a C. Do you know why? Because they did the math. They added it up and subtracted from it, oh, 17. So there's the C. That's the C style. That's the C personality style. But it's important to know these personality styles. It's important to know, first of all, for you, what blend of those styles, because those blends are all in us. Any one of us can be any one of those styles. How many of you believe that your personality style can change based on your environment? Yeah, that's right. You know what? Your car is your environment. And so people who are very easygoing, very stable, steady, laid back, sometimes they get behind the wheel, they turn into a D. And then as soon as they lock the door, doot, doot, they're back to their, hi, how's everything? And so you see these people change their styles in the car. When you start to merge, the guy that gets in front or won't let you through, that's the D. That's the D style. He will take a dent before he lets you in front of him. He's like, I'll take the dent. You will, no. That's the D personality style. Now the I The I is the guy that's trying to get in because he didn't realize that they were merging. Do you know why? Because he's talking and, he's singing a song. He's looking, he's like, hey, that was a good song. Last time I was down here, I remember there's a great radio. Oh, darn, I got to merge. That's the I. And he's waving. Hey, can I come in? Hey, can I come in? Hey, can I come in? Now the S personality style, they're the people that eventually will let you in. And they're like, this isn't right, but look at that guy. He's obviously from out of town. All right, I'll let you in. Now that percentage of people probably goes down as construction goes up. Now the C's are rarely in that situation. You know why? Because those are the people that have planned their route. Well, you have to leave a half hour early because you're going to want to make sure you do that. So those are the personality styles. So people are different. They are predictably different.
All right, so as the video noted, each style is predictably different. And it's really important to understand that no one style is better than the other. And we are just as easily a blend of more than one style. And I'm going to be sharing my DISC breakdown with you shortly. But as a teaser, I am in no by any means a D. I don't have any D in me, but if you do put me behind the wheel, just as the video said, some D comes out. So we have to remember that our behaviors can be situational, and therefore we have to adapt to the situations and others, right? So let's jump right in. So the purpose of this webinar is to show how we can use our behaviors in attracting, developing, and retaining a winning team. So to attract a winning team, we're going to look at understanding the behaviors, the predictability of personalities, and how we can use those behaviors to bring people into our lives or in our businesses. In order to develop a team, we identify their wants, needs, and expectations. And by examining these, we can implement strategies to ensure that our teams are working efficiently. Remember, we cannot truly value someone until we understand their wants and needs. And lastly, in order to retain this team, we need to look at how we're going to adapt to others to reduce tensions, to increase collaborations and trust in all. So I know you guys are very ready to learn, so let's jump right in how to attract a winning team. Now, with behaviors, a lot of what we see on the outside gives us a glimpse or real clues of what happens on the inside. So when we're attracting someone into our business, we are looking at their understanding their patterns of observable and external behaviors. Now, when you think of the word attracting, we're looking for desirable traits to see if that individual is a right fit for our lives or our businesses. So I want to give you two examples. In a real life example, we're attracting people into our lives. Suppose you're looking to date somebody, right? You want to know what their priorities are. You want to know their wants and their needs before you bring them into your life. Same thing with your business. You want to know whether they'll value the vision and the mission of your business before you bring them in. So we want to understand their pace and their priority, their wants and needs, and their general tendencies. So I'm going to break down each style for you now. So first we have the dominant style. Now the dominant style is very fast-paced and task-oriented. So their focus is on problems and challenges and finding those quick solutions, right? I's are fast-paced, but they're people-oriented. So they're going to get things done fast, but they're more concerned with meeting new people, making those connections, and that's how they handle situations, right? S's are slower paced, but they're still people oriented. They want to keep consistency in their life, but they still want to build that relationship with you over time. C's are slower paced and they're task oriented. So they're going to take their time and they're going to make sure that what they're doing is correct. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into each style. Hopefully for those who haven't done a DISC, maybe these immediate characteristics, you can kind of see which style you may be. So first, we're going to look at the dominant style. So high Ds are very fast-paced, task-oriented, known as the drivers or directors. They're firm and forceful, they're confident, and they're decisive. Now, I'm going to give you a real-life example. We have on the screen here, I have Judge Judy. So Judge Judy is a very high D and she's a judge. And in her role as a judge, she's very confident, firm, and decisive in her actions. And I think that that's very important for her as a judge. Now on the call, we have Marcia here, and I'm going to share her DISC breakdown in a little bit as well, but she is a high D. In her role as a business coach and a CEO and an owner, these fast-paced, task-oriented behaviors are very great for her role. Now, I's, on the other hand, are still fast-paced, but they're people-oriented. They're known as interactive, the socializers. They're outgoing, optimistic, and enthusiastic. So they're more fast-paced, but they prefer that social environment. They prefer to get to know you a little bit more, and they prefer to look at feelings rather than logic. So as a real-life example, I have Oprah. We all know Oprah to be very influential. You know, she loves to get to know people. She socializes. She's easily influenced, and she influences others. And she's very energetic and fast-paced. And she prefers to work on emotions rather than logic. Now we have the S style. Now they're slower paced, but they still are people-oriented. They're relatable, team players, likable, and stable. So high S's, they're slower paced, but they still want to maintain that relationship over time. They're relatable. They're still going to be able to relate to you and they're rarely aggressive, and they prefer to listen more and speak less. So as our real life example, I have Joe Biden. We know Joe Biden to be the United States president, and he's more slower paced, cool, calm, and collected, but he's still relatable and liked by the general public. And he's still building those relationships, but still working at a slower pace. Now, lastly, we have the C's. C's are slower paced, task-oriented, known as the thinkers, self-reliant, analytical, and cautious. Now, high C's are more reserved and they're slower paced. They prefer to work on the task at hand and solving it in a non-intrusive way, right? They're known as the thinkers and the innovators. So they don't come to conclusions very fast because they're taking their time to get all the information that is needed. So as our real life example, I have Bill Gates. So Bill Gates is the co-founder of Microsoft, a very successful company. And he did this by focusing on objectives and facts rather than ambiguous emotions that may have come up when he was creating Microsoft. So now that I've identified each style, I hope that you guys can start to think of these immediate characteristics and see if you can identify your style or the styles of those around you in your workplace. Can you identify a high D, an I, an S, or a C? And as I mentioned, you know, we can be a mixture. So sometimes it's hard to easily identify them, but I'm going to break it down for you a little bit more a little later, right? So now I'm going to give you some examples on how we can attract these different styles into different roles. So if we're attracting, for example, a sales position, now high I's make great salespeople because they're still focused on building the relationships. They're going to be interactive. They love talking to others. So if we want to bring an I onto our team, we may want to write an ad that's very energetic and interactive, animated, excited, full of emotions, because that's how they are, and that's the role that they want to play. Now, if we're looking, say, a managerial position, high D's, as I mentioned, say with Marcia or Judge Judy, high D's, they're more firm and forceful. So they're great for managerial positions because they're great at making decisions and they focus on the task at hand. So if we're attracting in a dominant style, we're going to get straight to the point, give straight facts, because they're focused on the results, not necessarily the process, right? So provide as much information as we can. I'm going to give you some more examples. If we're looking for, say, a human resource officer or even a human resource manager, we want to look for high S's. Now, high S's, as I mentioned, they're still focused on building the relationships, being interactive, being liked, being stable. And for an HR position, you still need to have that team player. They need to interact with every single individual that's in your organization. So to attract an S, we want to give the factual evidence, give them time to process it, but also make it more likable and make it geared towards teamwork and engagement and all of that. Now, lastly, for an accountant, we want to get the C's in there, the high C's. because they're very analytical and they focus on evidence. They're going to look at the charts, the numbers, everything to make sure that everything is correct. So for an accountant, a high C is very beneficial, right? So to attract them in, we're going to give as much factual evidence as we can and specific details of the job description. So to really sum up attracting individuals of different styles into our business, we really need to understand what is it that we're looking for? What are the behavioral patterns that we want to bring in? What are the desirable traits that we are looking for in each individual? So before we move on, as I promised, I said I would share my breakdown and also Marcia's breakdown, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of an example. So my DISc breakdown is a high S, C, and I in my adapted style. And in my natural style, I'm a high I, C, and a little S. So as you can see from the graphs here, the adapted style is the first graph. That is the environment that I adapt to. So for example, work, that's my work focus. As my role as a business development officer and a DISc certified practitioner, these are the behavioral characteristics that come up the most. Now, the other one, my natural style, this is how I am, in every other circumstances with my friends at home. And as you can see, I'm a mixture of 3 different styles. Now, in my role as a business development officer, being an S is very good because I work well with the team and also with other, prospects and clients, but I still do it at a slower pace to ensure everything goes well. Same thing with the C. I'm very analytical. I'm going to ensure that the information that I'm given and providing is correct. But I have that I'm a salesperson as well. I connect, I interact with leads. I'm constantly speaking to different leads and clients, and that I is very important. Now, Marcia's style is a high D and I all around. So she's dominant and she's influential. And in her role as a business coach and an owner and a CEO, this is great because she's firm and she's direct and she's confident, but she still interacts well with others and making that connection. So the moral of the story with sharing these 2 different styles is that different styles can work together and they can work together effectively. Now, if you look at our styles, you can see that there's high Ds, high Is, high S's, and high Cs. That is the entire DISC, right? So it works, it can work, but we just have to learn how to adapt to each other as well and identifying our different behavioral styles. So now that I have, brought up all of these examples, I hope that you can kind of look into your team a little bit and see if you can even notice a breakdown just from the basic information that I have provided, right? So we've brought these individuals in. We are now going to have to develop this team, right? As I mentioned, with behaviors, a lot of what we see on the outside gives us a clue of what happens on the inside. So in developing a winning team, we must first identify the individual styles by looking at what they do and what they say. And there's going to be 2 main questions that we're going to look at. We're going to look at identifying if the individual is open versus guarded, or they're direct versus indirect. So I'm going to show you here. So we have the dominant style are guarded, whereas the dominant and conscientious are guarded. Influential and steady are open, whereas dominant and influential are direct, and conscientious and steady are indirect. So don't worry, I'm going to break down these a little bit further so you can easily identify if an individual is guarded or they're open or they're direct and indirect. So let's do this. So guarded individuals, as I mentioned from the graph, are those dominant and those conscientious individuals, right? So they prefer to keep to themselves. They only share what is needed to be known. They stick to an agenda. They prefer to work independently, and they focus on the task at hand. So the guarded individuals, they're going to get things done, and they prefer to work on their own because they're so focused on the task and not so much focused on relationship building. So a dominant person, they're going to be very quick with it. There's a conscientious person, they're slow, but they still prefer to work on their own. Now, open individuals are those I's and those S's. So they love to share and show emotions and feelings. They're easy to get to know. They love working with others, and they make their decisions based on feelings. So those I's and those S's, they're gonna tell you everything that happened on their weekend, what their plans are for Christmas. They're gonna share stories about their kids, their friends. They're gonna tell you, right? Same thing with the steady team, the steady style. They're team oriented. They still want to be liked. So they're going to share with you. They're gonna be open with their emotions. So now that we've covered guarded and open, we're gonna cover indirect versus direct. So the indirect style are those steady, so those S's, and those compliant or conscientious, the C's. They approach risk and decisions slowly. They refrain from sharing their opinions. They always ask questions to clarify, and they're more patient and cooperative. So the steady individuals and the conscientious individuals, they're going to ask as many questions as they can. They want as much outside information from others' opinions so that they can know that what they're doing is correct, right? Direct individuals, on the other hand, I don't know if anybody's ever heard, you say, oh, that person is just very direct, right? They approach risk and decisions very quickly. They express their opinions readily. They're confident and assertive, and they can be confronting and argumentative, right? So the dominant styles and the influential styles are very talkative, very outgoing, and they're going to express their opinions, whether you want to hear it or not. They're going to tell you, right? And they're very confident in what they're doing. So this is a little breakdown on the different styles. And I want you guys to look at these and see if you can identify a little bit in yourself. Now, each behavioral style brings out these unique abilities. So we can see the dominant individuals, they're self-reliant, risk takers, influential style, they're more social, enthusiastic, trusting. The steady style is very calm, loyal, relaxed. And the conscientious style is very precise. They're going to find all the facts. They're fact finders. They're very analytical. But it's also important to remember that we are a blend. So it's all based on the observable behavior. So for example, I'm very trusting, but I'm also very calm, and I'm also a fact finder. I'm going to find as much information as I can, but I'm still very trusting in the opinions of others. So I want you guys to think here a little bit about the people closest to you. Can you identify yourself in this graph, or even those around you? It's very important to kind of identify right off the bat the different styles and the indicators. So in order to develop the team, we need to look at what drives them, the style indicators, right? So this graph here will show us how we can understand the behaviors of others. So as we can see here, the D's focus is on problems and tasks. So they need that challenge to solve. They need that authority, but they fear being taken advantage of or losing control. And so their emotions are more anger and impatience. And by anger, I don't mean hostility or aggression. I mean that driven emotion to get things done. They're very driven individuals. I's, their focus is on people. They need that social relationship, that friendly environment. And they fear being left out or losing that social approval. They fear that they won't be liked by other individuals, right? So their emotions are more optimistic and trusting because they want to be liked. S's are more focused on the pace and the environment. As the video mentioned, S's are more the status quo. They need that consistency in their life. So their needs are systems, teams, that stable environment. Things are going to be the same every single day. They need that knowledge, right? So they fear sudden change and loss of stability and security. So their emotions are more patience and non-expression. Now, C's, on the other hand, are focused solely on procedure. They need those rules to follow. They need everything to be correct every single time. So they need that data to analyze. They need the facts behind that. And they fear being criticized or losing that accuracy and that quality. So their emotions are generally more fearful and concerned that they may not be doing the right thing. So in order to truly develop this team, we need to identify each style's core emotions that are driven by their needs and their fears. What are they focused on? And once as we can develop them, we can help them transition into their role in the business or in life more readily and more easily, right? So we've attracted them in, we're now identifying the different styles. How do we keep this team working, right? We know it's very, sometimes as we move on, you'll see it's a little bit easier to identify styles, but how do we keep them? How do we keep them working effectively, right? So in order to retain this winning team, right? We want to keep them working effectively, but if there's going to be constant conflict or tensions, then we can't keep this winning team. Now, some of you may be thinking, yeah, there's some conflict happening. Maybe that's the reason why you've joined the webinar today, because there may be some conflicts happening in your business, in your life, and you want to know why. What's making this individual have conflict? How are we having conflict and why, right? So in order to retain a winning team, we have to adapt to individual styles by acknowledging their styles. And we do this by adjusting our pace and our priority. Now, when we're adapting to individuals, it's very important to understand that adaptability is important for every relationship, whether that be personal or professional. But it's important to understand that adaptability doesn't mean imitations of other styles. I'm not asking you to go and act as a D just because this individual is a D. No, I'm saying you need to choose how you're going to respond and you're going to interact with others based on different styles to get that favorable outcome. So highly adaptable people determine what types of behaviors are most appropriate in a specific situation. So when it comes to behavioral adaptability, understanding your DISC is an excellent way to determine how to adapt to other individuals. And if you're willing and capable of adapting. Now we remember those two questions, whether they're indirect or direct, or they're guarded or open, and looking at their pace and their priorities. This is how we're going to determine how we're going to adapt to other individuals. So how are we going to adjust our pace? If you're a direct style, and as I mentioned, that's either a D or an I, you tend to be more focused on being fast, getting there faster. So you're more fast paced. But what happens if you're interacting with someone on your team that is an indirect style? So they're a C or an S. We can't necessarily continue with our fast pace. So we need to operate more slowly. We need to take it down a notch, right? So we're going to want to operate more slowly. We're going to want to seek the opinions of others and invite others to share in the decision making. And I know some of you may be identifying yourself as D's and I's, and I know it may be hard for you guys, but you have to listen more and talk less and avoid any form of criticism, right? So just slow down your pace. Now, on the other hand, if you're an indirect style, you're an S or a C, you tend to be more slower paced. But what happens if you're working with a direct style, the D's or the I's? You're going to have to operate in a faster pace. So you're going to want to go to the individuals with confidence. You're going to want to go fully prepared. You want to speed up the process of coming to a decision. You're going to want to initiate that conversation, but be as professional as possible. Right? So we've now adjusted our pace, whether or not we're going to work slower or we're going to work faster based on the different styles. But what about the priorities, right? So if you're an open style, you're an S or an I, you tend to prioritize the relationship building, that feeling. You're going to want to get to know the individual a little bit more. But if you're working with a guarded style, those D's and those C's, are going to have to adjust our priority to focus on the task, right? So focus on the agenda rather than any small talk. You want to approach them in a professional way. They may not want to hear about your weekend plans. They may not want to hear about what's happening. They want to know exactly what it is that you're coming to them with. They want to know the agenda. So be fully prepared to give logic and facts, and they want to know what the end goal is. and downplay your enthusiasm just a little bit. I'm not asking you to, have no enthusiasm, but just show them that you're there to talk business. On the other hand, if you are a guarded style, so you're a D or a C, you tend to prioritize tasks and problem solving. But what happens if you're working with an S or an I, right? Their focus is more on relationship building. So the Ds and Cs have to adjust their priorities to focus on that relationship building. You want to engage in a little small talk first, share your feelings, share your emotions. I know for Ds and Cs that may be kind of hard, but share a little bit about what's happening in your life. Find that common ground with that individual. Use friendly language, be flexible with your agenda, and be more relaxed, but still be enthusiastic. Now, as you can see, and as I've mentioned before, Marcia is on the call with us, and we're constantly adjusting our pace and priorities while we work together. So she's more guarded and I'm more open, right? So we're constantly adjusting the pace and the priorities differently so that we can work well together. So it can happen, guys. So I'm going to give you guys some tips on how to adjust to each individual style, right? Say if we're adapting to a D style, so say you are an I, an S, or a C, and you're adapting to a D style. Remember, D's priority is getting tasks done and not wasting time. So acknowledge that you're coming to them and you're not going to waste their time. You're coming to them with something, a proposal or something, and you're not going to waste their time. You're going to get right down to business. You want to be professional. As I said, get down to business immediately, be punctual, and stick to the agenda. Remember, these individuals, they may not necessarily want to engage in, pointless conversations. So we want to just approach them and get down to business right away. They're so focused on getting things done that you are a different style, an I, an S, or a C. They're going to want to acknowledge that and approach them in their style. Now, if you're adapting to an I style, so you're a D, a C, or an S, you want to show that you support them in what they're talking about, in what they're currently doing in their life. Show them what you're working on and that you care about it. Be entertaining, fun, enthusiastic. Illustrate your ideas with stories, testimonials, show them pictures of your life, right? Engage in some small talk and show interest in their ideas. So I's are all about, they love working with people, they love being in agreement with people, and they love when people show interest in them. So don't make the conversation all about work. Be social with them first and then get down to the work. But you may have to put in that extra time and a little extra energy to show that you support them. Now with S's are all about stability and pace, right? So they still want to build that relationship with you over time. So be warm, sincere, and show interest. Actively listen and show commitment to them. Provide them with guarantees and assurances. Now remember, S's, they fear sudden change. So provide them with the reassurance that what they're doing is right. And then that's how we develop the trust, and they will develop confidence in you. And communicate with them in a consistent manner. So there are slower pace, but they want to get to know you over time. So don't rush them, still build that relationship over time. Now, lastly, if we're adapting to a C, so you're a D, an I, or an S, C's are all about being thorough and well prepared. So be well prepared with what you're approaching them with. Have little to no small talk. They may not necessarily want that conversation with you, right? Provide them with solid, tangible, and precise evidence and give them time to think. Remember, they like that factual evidence. They like the charts, the numbers, anything that they can analyze to see if it's correct before they make any decisions. So with the different styles, if we're constantly pushing our own agenda onto individuals, there's going to be conflicts, there's going to be issues. So we must adapt our styles to them and them to us in order to retain this winning team. Now, it's important to note that as we individually adapt to people, it also works in different instances. So in adapting in team building, in leadership, in sales, right? So in teams, we need to learn how to make that team work, as I've mentioned. But in leadership, we have to remember that we can't lead solely by our style. So Marcia can't lead solely as a D because individuals on her team may not necessarily be a D, right? So we need to learn how to inspire, delegate, and manage others based on their individual style. Now in sales, we're constantly interacting with new leads, with clients, any prospects. So we need to learn how to identify the styles of new leads and connect to them, sell to them in the way that they will be able to receive it. So we do this by identifying their wants and needs. So I'm going to break this down to you guys a little bit more, right? So DISC in team building. So as I mentioned, in teams, there's going to be a mixture of different styles. And when it works well, there's productivity, innovation, synergy. But if not, then it can lead to conflict, issues, and disagreement, right? So it's important to analyze each team member's goals, objectives, and needs, and use the strengths of each member to have an effective team. Now, Dr. Philip Hunsaker, who's a professor at the School of Business Administration, said that the key is to analyze the objectives before you recruit a team or you create a team, and then create that team based on the best matches the desired results. So try and find the strengths of each individual style or each individual and bring them together. That's how we're going to have an effective team, right? So as you look into your team, you can see whether or not there's more D's, there are more C's, there are more S's, and how does that work for your current team, right? But if we want to influence a team, think of the different strengths of each style. So D's, they're more the team leaders. They're driven. They're going to get things done, right? The I's are more like the team cheerleaders. They're going to cheer you on. They're going to be energetic. They're going to make it fun, and you're still going to get things done, right? The S's, they're inclusive. They want to make sure that everybody does their part and nobody feels left out, but they're still going to take their time to ensure that things are going well. With C's, you may want to have a few more C's on your teams than other styles because they're going to get things done. They're going to ensure that their structure and the information is correct and it's there. They're very valuable in team building, right? In leadership, with each behavioral style, there's different ways to delegate and give tasks. And being adaptable as a leader helps you to build a bridge to your employees and make them feel valued. Now, with leadership, there's two sources of power. There's your position power. So that's your title. You are the CEO, you are the manager. But your personal power is what turns compliance into cooperation. It's your personal power that allows a team to be led properly and effectively, right? So we can't lead based on the fact that, we solely just the CEO. We need that personal power to turn compliance into cooperation. Now, if you're leading to different styles, if you're leading to a D, you may want to listen to their suggestions. Find that common ground with them. With I's, listen to their personal feelings and interact with them responsively. So they're going to share with you, you may want to share a little bit more with them as well. With S's, listen to their suggestion, do more talking than listening and clarify each point. With C's, be organized, provide them with logical conclusions, and don't do it in a judgmental way, right? Now in sales, we know the buying cycle, or some of us may know the buying cycle. We connect, we explore the needs, we present solutions, we confirm the sale, and we assure customer satisfaction. So I'm going to break these down for you shortly, but I also want to mention here that while DISC is a great tool to understand the behaviors of salespersons as well as, prospects or clients that you're selling to, I would also like to just note in here that the sales IQ assessment is a great tool to understand if your sales individuals have the right competencies, if they have the right abilities to win and keep and connect with prospects, right? Because these salespeople are the first people that clients come in, they speak to the salespeople first before they come into your business. So does your sales team have what it takes to actually sell? So these are the 5 aspects of a buying cycle, but there are 8. So the sales IQ assessment does give you an analysis of all 8 competencies. But let me share with you a little bit about the DISC behavioral styles in the buying cycle, right? So as you can see here, if we want to connect with a D, right, we're going to want to skip all the small talk, right? Be fully prepared. Remember, they want the end results. They don't want to waste any time. So answer any questions that they have directly and make the presentation brief. They may not have time to, have a 20-minute conversation with you. Break it down to, say, a 5-minute conversation and give the points that are needed for them to make their decision. With eyes, you want to allow time for them to share about their personal lives first, but keep them focused on the goal or the purpose that you're selling to them, right? Because they will go off on a tangent and share all about their lives. So we want to keep them focused. And another aspect I want to share here is to provide testimonials or stories or images that are really going to show that this product or service that you're offering is going to cure some of their anxieties or cure a problem that they're having. With S's, be sincere with your conversation. Show interest in them and don't ask any non-threatening questions. Show them that the solution that you're giving to them is simple, right? And it's going to help them in the end. But don't nudge them too quickly to make a decision. Give them time. With C's, skip the small talk, same with the D's, but remain cool, calm, collected, and professional. Remember, C's, they like that, accuracy, that quality. So ask them questions that reveal their expertise, right? And put emphasis on the accuracy, the provision, the quality, the facts about the different things that you're selling. Now, with confirming and assuring in sales, you remember, as I said, D's don't waste their time, right? So flat out ask them if they're interested, and follow up with them to see if they're happy. Because if they're not happy with it, they're probably going to come and tell you anyways. So just go ahead and ask them, see if they're happy with the product or solution, right? With eyes, be ready to take their order because they influence and they are easily influenced. So be ready because they may buy quickly, but slow them down if they buy too quickly, right? Because they may not take the time to check different options and to see what else is out there. And another thing to note for eyes is they're not very business oriented or task oriented. So I would suggest do all the paperwork for them beforehand or even after the call so that they're not frustrated, so that they're more likely to buy your product or service. With S's, they're slow to make decisions, so don't rush them. They like to consult with others. They like to ask as many opinions as they can. Now, I'm guilty of this with my S, because if I go to buy something online, I'm going to ask at least 10 people whether I should buy it or not before I actually buy it, right? So I want that personal assurance that what I'm doing or what I'm buying is correct. And another example that I personally benefit from is when people give me their private number, give me that connection, that instant connection with them. I feel valued, right? So that's important. That's important for S's. Make them feel valued and that you want to get to know them over time. With C's, provide them with as many options as you can and allow them time to analyze each option beforehand. Remember, they don't want risk, so they want to try and reduce that risk. And you may want to reinforce the value, the quality, and the reliability of the different styles. So for example, me as a high S, C, and I in my role as a BDO, a business development officer, I'm constantly interacting with different styles, right? So I'm constantly interacting with D's, with I's, with S's and C's. And I'm so aware of the different styles that, if I pick up the phone and I'm speaking to somebody, I can almost immediately recognize their styles. So for example, if I pick up the phone and somebody's calling and they're like, what's the price for this, this, and this? I'm like, oh, this person's a D. They're not, I'm not even gonna bother to ask them how their day has been going. They just want to know the price, and that's it, right? If I pick up the phone and somebody is like, hi, how are you doing? How's your day been going? I'm like, oh, this person's there, and I'm gonna chat with them a little bit and then see what's up. I'm gonna see what they're looking for and how I can assist them. So I can easily identify different styles from 2 seconds on a phone call. And that's why it's so important that you all understand the different styles so that you can immediately adapt to other styles. Now I want to mention here that, as the video said, majority of the world, 69% of the world are S's. So how are we going to adapt to majority of the world, right? We're going to want to build that relationship over time. So take our time, but still build a team with them. These are less common. They're 3% of the world. So what are the chances that on your team or who you're interacting with is a D? So we want to look at how we're going to interact with the I's, the S's, and the C's, as well as the D's, and how are we going to make that work for us? Now, I know we covered a lot in this webinar, but just to kind of sum up a little bit, we learned about attracting a winning team. So looking at their pace and their priorities, their wants and needs. Are they slow? Are they fast to make decisions? Are they focused on, the task at hand, or are they focused on building that relationship? We looked at developing a winning team by identifying whether or not they're guarded, are they open, are they direct or indirect? And now that we've developed the team, how do we keep them? And we do that by adapting our styles to them and them to us. It's very important that it's a two-way street, right? So we're constantly adapting to them and they're constantly adapting to us. And that's why it's very important that each and every single individual in your organization, or sometimes even in your life. I had my twin sister do a DISc assessment. We're constantly interacting with each other. We live together in a 2-bedroom apartment. It's not only about being professional, it's about understanding others' behaviors, right? So when should you use DISc, right? Remember, DISc is all about observable behaviors. So maybe if you're hiring a new individual, you may want to have them do a DISc. Remember, I said we want to know all of that information before we bring that person in, because we don't want to bring someone in that doesn't match the values or the pace or the priority of the role. If we're promoting an individual, does that individual have the behavioral requirements for that new role? You may want to do a DISc to kind of figure that out. If you're creating a new team, suppose you're creating a task force or you're creating a new sales team, you want to know if they have what it takes to really carry out the activities based on every individual style. And lastly, if we're assessing whether someone is right for the role, say, for example, you're doing a performance review, you may want to assess whether or not that individual is right for that current role, or maybe they need to move to a different role, or, they maybe not the right fit for your organization in general. So we want to do the DISc to figure that out. Now, I just want to mention here that your DISc profile can change. So when I came into Action Coach, I did a DISc assessment, and I recently did a new one 1 year later, and my DISc did change, not majorly, but, my I style, my interactive style has increased. And that is because I'm in a new role. I'm in a new role as a salesperson, right? So it's very important to ensure that each and every individual in your organization does a DISc so that we can really get a better understanding of every individual, right? So for attracting a new individual into our business, as I mentioned, we're going to want to do the DISc online assessment. But I also want to mention the executive summary, right? The executive summary really gives us a broad understanding of the individual, right? I apologize, let me just pull this up again. So it gives us a real understanding of the individual. If you're looking to hire or they're looking at selection questions, it looks at the individual's critical thinking and their likely action steps, based on their motivators. So it's good at looking at leadership and management. sales and marketing, in customer service, in general administration. It is such a broad assessment that I would recommend that you use when you're attracting a new member or a new team. If you're developing the team, again, the DISC assessment is a great tool, but I'd also recommend the emotional intelligence quotient, so the EIQ. Now, the emotional intelligence quotient recognizes feelings and responses in a focused way. So looking at the individual's ability to communicate, to be productive, looking at their performance, their decision-making, their self-control, their conflict management. Are they emotionally intelligent? The level at which they are emotionally intelligent, to work with others and looking at themselves as well. For leadership, I would recommend that you use the Leadership 360 assessment. Now, oftentimes the way we perceive ourselves and the way others perceive us is two different things, right? And managers and business leaders, they often persist in communication without recognizing that there may be different intentions or misinterpretations from the different styles. So the Leadership 360 assessment is a great tool to understand how you are as a leader, as a department manager, as the CEO. Are you able to take the looking at different perspectives, how people look at you as well as how you look at yourself? Now for sales, as I mentioned, the DISC is very good at seeing how salespeople will be able to connect with others, but I'd also recommend the Sales IQ Plus assessment. So as I mentioned before, this is a great assessment to look at whether or not your sales individual or team has the 8 competencies to sell. So whether or not they can win, retain, and grow your client base, whether or not they have that ability. This is a great assessment tool. I've done it myself, and it really gives you an idea of how do you sell to others? What are your primary behaviors in selling to others, and whether or not you're able to do that. So now I know I've given you all a lot of information and a lot of different assessments, but what are your next steps, right? As I mentioned, we do offer the DISC online assessment here. So that is an assessment that will take about 10-15 minutes, and you answer the questions on the assessment and you get a detailed report. So that's going to be $85 plus GCT. Now, we do also offer a 1-hour debrief. So I, as a DISC certified practitioner, will be doing the 1-hour debrief that's included with the online assessment. So what I will do is it will give you a deeper dive into your assessment, into the report that you're given, to see how you or an individual on your team can make their behavioral styles work for them. Now, if you have a team, we do offer a 2-hour team DISC debrief, and that's going to be $1,000 plus GCT. And this is exclusive of the DISC assessment, because I want to mention here that, if you have a bigger group, we may be able to offer you a discount based on the size of your group. So that if you guys are interested in doing that, say you want to do it for your sales team, or, your entire team in general, that is something that we can discuss. So if you guys are interested in doing that, we can discuss that in further detail. And so to sum up, these are all the assessments. And I want to mention here that all the links will be provided for you all to purchase, as well as some additional information that will also be emailed to you as well after the session. So you guys can check them out, make your purchases, and start having your team doing the different assessments. And as I mentioned, it's really important to have your DISC assessment done, because as I mentioned, it is not only for your professional benefit, it is also for your personal benefit, right? So it's very important that we can recognize the behaviors of others and how we can adapt to others in different situations. So I've given you guys a lot of information, so just want to check in. If you have any questions, you can type them into the chat.
Also put the links in the chat.
Okay, so the links are in the chat. Awesome. I'm just going through the chat here. Okay, so Sheila, your question. So if you are the team leader and all of these styles present on present on your team, you can imagine the challenge of catering to all of these different styles. Yes, I recognize that as a leader, it may be hard to kind of, identify and, cater to each individual style, but it's important that you first recognize each style, and maybe work with that individual still in the team, but when you're communicating with that individual, kind of shift your style towards that individual. If you're communicating with another style, then kind of we have to have the ability to shift our styles and easily adapt to the different styles. So I can see how that can be a bit of a challenge, but it is doable. Awesome.
Sheila had a question where she has, when you adapt to the styles, what are you doing to your own style?
Right. So as I mentioned, it's not so much of imitation, and it's more about putting your style a little bit more on the back burner and just making sure that the responses that you're giving are catering, or not catering, but you're adapting to that individual, right? So in that instance, you're not really too focused on what your style is. So you may want to just kind of like not think about how you would naturally adapt or naturally respond. Take it for a second and think, okay, how would this person want me to respond? So kind of maybe just put your style a little bit more on the back burner and just focus on that individual style.
I'd also want to add, if it's okay, Kim, that one of the things you as a leader will have to do, right, is that you will have to become what we call high DISc. And what we mean by that is that over time, because you are becoming more, you're gaining more experience in adapting to the various styles on your team, you yourself become what we call high DISc, in that it becomes, if you were even to take, I remember one of my master coaches over the years, because he has to coach so many different personality profiles, different types, when he eventually took his DISc again, maybe like 10 years later on, it was high DISc. And what that means is he's on the adapted style, he has learned how to adapt to the various different behavioral profiles of the clients that he coach, and you'll need to do that with your team as well. So, Sheila, I want to say, you won't lose yourself. You will always be who you are naturally. But what you will be doing is becoming more aware of the people around you and how you interact with them, and recognizing, as we said in the platinum rule, to treat people the way they want to be treated. It's not catering to them. It's understanding, how do they communicate? How do they think? What are their needs and wants? Because true communication is the response that you get. And so you want to remove all the barriers to communication. So it doesn't mean catering and allowing people to do whatever they feel like. That's not what it means. It means understanding, who am I dealing with, and how do I adjust my style to better communicate with them to get the outcome that is needed.
Yeah, awesome. And, I had a debrief done on me as well. And I just want to note that, as you interact with different styles, you may see that style show up in yourself as well, which makes it easier to adapt. So Marcia is a high D and I'm a high I, S, and C. But as we interact together, I can kind of see those D personalities come out in myself, maybe not show up in my report. But as you're interacting with different styles, you may see their styles show up in how you approach a situation. So that, that high DISc is a great way to show that you can be a little bit of each, even if it doesn't necessarily show up in your assessment as well.
Right. And another thing I wanted to share too, Kim, is, for example, again, it's not just adapting to people, it's also adapting to situations. So you already have people who you have employed who are in their current roles. So if, for example, you have somebody who is a high C, who is more introverted and not people oriented, but you have them in a sales role already, which unfortunately is what I find happens in many companies. You go and hire somebody who says, oh, I like working with people, and you take that at face value because you didn't do a DISC. And then you wonder, why aren't they going out and making sales calls? Why aren't they speaking to anybody? Why are they, so shy and introverted? So one thing you're going to have to do is have them do their DISC. Let them understand what they will have to do in terms of when you're in selling. You have to be more people oriented. You have to be more assertive. You have to be more driven, because in sales, you have to go for goals. You're going to have to do, so they're going to have to learn themselves, not how to adapt only to people, but how to adapt to the situation and the role I'm in. So that's why, as Kim said, you need to make sure that when building your team and when you are hiring, be clear on what is the profile that is required for this job to succeed. And then write your ad accordingly. And when you're interviewing, do the DISC. One of my clients, before they hire, they go, coach, I need a DISC. And we send them the DISC link. I put it in the chat for you. It's there in terms of use this link to purchase your DISC. You can purchase it online and we'll send the assessment. We can DISC your entire team and do team reports as well. But really, folks, if you're trying to build a team without understanding the behavioral profiles of each person and the profiles that are best suited to the job, so like sales is both high I and D, so I is people oriented, but you want to bring up some of the D as well, because you have to be driven to meet the goals that you have to achieve in the job. So if this is just the beginning, Kim did an excellent job in doing the introduction. But as she said, there is so much more. I encourage you, if you are a leader, which all of you are right now, and you want to build a winning team, you cannot do it without the use of these tools. You cannot do it effectively.
Right, great. Thank you so much. So are there any other questions that you guys may have? You can unmute or you can type in the chat if they can unmute. Okay, not seeing any.
So I put in the link.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, we're saying something. So yeah, so I just want to thank you guys all for coming. I know the links are in the chat, so I know if you guys want to grab those before the session ends. Otherwise, the links will be shared with you guys via email from me, so you can look out for an email from me. But I really do encourage you guys to get your DISC assessments done, or if you've already done them in the past, maybe do a fresh one to see how you've changed over time, or maybe the role that you have has made you change. So for example, me, as I adapted into my business development role, my DISC did change over time. So I highly recommend that you guys get those in and get them done, because it's very informative, as I said, for both your personal and professional life. So I just want to thank you guys for coming on and listening and staying. And I hope that you guys got some great takeaways.
Right. Thank you so much, Kimberly. And I want you all to recognize that, this was, very well prepared. I want to, really applaud Kimberly on this presentation. It was very informative. Even as I was sitting here, I was learning some things again myself over time, as she is our DISC certified practitioner. So way more knowledge than I have in this area. So really, really thank you. So please use the links. We will send out the email. We'll send a link to the recording. And please, guys, do this to build the teams. Leadership is about developing your people. You don't develop them in teams, you develop them individually. And to develop them individually, you've got to know them. So thank you for your attention. Thank you, Kimberly. You're absolutely amazing. And we look forward to doing additional sessions with you over time.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.